Krishna, everyone, and welcome back once again to our series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 120. And herein we'll continue discussing Srimati Radharani's lotus feet. In particular, once again, the anklets that decorate her lotus feet. But before doing so, I'd like to share with you a very beautiful poem by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur entitled Radhakund Tata Kunja Kutir. Radhakund Tata Kunja Kutir. It's from his epic Saranagati, wherein he mentions many of the stimuli that we have been discussing in this series for a long time, the series of stimulation for ecstatic love. I was thinking it's actually a perfect synopsis of all these 120 classes to date. He writes, and it's so beautiful, a cottage in a grove on the banks of Radhakund, the great Govardhan Hill, the banks of the Jamuna, Kusham Sharovara, Manasa Ganga, the daughter of Kalinda, the Jamuna, with their many waves, Vamsivat, Gokul, Dira Samira, the trees, creepers, and reeds of Vrindavan, the different varieties of colorful birds, the deer, the cooling breeze from the Malaya mountains, the peacocks, the bumblebees, the pastimes with the flute itself, the buffalo horn bugle, the footprints of cows in the dust of Braj, the rows of blackish rain clouds, springtime, the moon, the conch shell, and the kartals. All these I know to be very favorable for the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I recognize in them transcendental stimulus for making the Lord's charming pastimes more intense. I refuse to go anywhere if stimuli for devotional service are not there, for to abandon them is to abandon life itself. For to abandon them is to abandon life itself. So appropriate for all of us, that particular quote. So regarding Sri Radha's ankle bells, the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 14-28 describes how all ankle bells in Goloka are made of what? Touchstone. Chintamanis, Charana, Bhushanam, Anga, Nanam. From that verse. Meaning, the anklets on the damsels of Brajabhumi are all made of Chintamani stone. And Srila Jiva Goswami describes the anklets of Sri Radha in his Gopal Champu, Uttara 34th chapter. He writes, Tasya Gaja Gaman Ya, Mani Ham Saka Nupura Dva Naya, Ganta Tan Tana Tulya, Dadyu Kampam Saputnishu. Translation. Sri Radha had the gait of a maddened she-elephant. Her anklets made a sound tana-tana ting-ting, tana-tana ting-ting, like chiming bells, and this chiming created shivering in the hearts of the other wives of Krishna. He writes like that. Then he goes on. The two anklets that decorate the two lotus feet of Sri Radha are like delightful kanchana, wagtail birds. Hearing the sounds of these anklets, Hari experiences the joy of winning over the 10 directions. Hari experiences the joy of winning over the 10 directions, just to hear the ankle bells of Sri Radha. That's so nice. A note here, according to Vedic literature, in dealing with positive and negative omens, it is considered extremely auspicious for a king to hear the sounds of a wagtail bird when he departs his kingdom to win over all directions. I found that as well. Now, for today, I'd like to share with you, it's a well-known pastime in which the famous devotee named Dukhi Krishnadas once found an anklet of Srimati Radharani and was able to return it to her and have her darshan. It's famous. It's a very famous pastime. But repetition, again, is necessary to really understand and appreciate something in Krishna consciousness. Now, much can be said about the life of this great devotee, Dukhi Krishnadas, also known, we'll hear later, as Syamananda Pandit. But today we're concerned about his service to Srila Jiva Goswami as a young man in Sri Vrindavan Dham 500 years ago. Pleased with the seva, the service of Dukhi Krishnadas, at one point, Jiva Goswami entrusted him with the service of sweeping the sacred grove of Seva Kunja every day. Of course, we know that Seva Kunja is where many of Radha and Krishna's pastimes take place. Now, the practice of serving the Dham in such, you could say, a menial way, it's called Dham Seva. Dham Seva. And it's actually an important part of living or visiting in the Dham, in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Dham Seva, our acharyas say, can take the form of like weeding gardens, cleaning ponds, sweeping the ground, securing trees to their supports, planting and caring for flowers, or cleaning paving stones and pavilions. You might want to note that, to do some menial service in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Now it's described that as our Dukhi Krishnadas swept Seva Kunj, he was thinking as follows: this is the same dust that once touched the feet of Krishna and the gopis. This is a meditation, doing his menial service. He's thinking, this is the same dust that once touched the feet of Krishna and his gopis. And as he was thinking in this way, it's described, he muddied the earth he stood on with a steady stream of tears. Hare Krishna. So as we know, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are eternally going on in Vrindavan. Krishna's manifest pastimes, prakat, took place 5,000 years ago, and everyone could see. But his uppercut pastimes, unmanifest to normal vision, take place every day and night, even now in Vrindavan, if only we had the eyes to see. So it's described that during this period of Dukhi Krishna Das's life, one night, Krishna and his gopis were absorbed in singing and dancing and uppercut lila, because we're speaking about 500 years ago, in Seva Kunja. And at one point, as the pace of this dancing increased, a golden anklet bracelet, ankle bells, named Manju Gosha, which was studded with beautiful sapphires, etc., slipped off the left foot of Srimati Radharani and fell in that dancing arena, actually unnoticed by anyone. So, we go ahead a little bit. Early the next morning, Dukhi Krishnadas arrived for his daily service of sweeping that same kunj. And upon reaching it, he noticed, it's described, jasmine creepers and other flowers lying scattered everywhere, and the parrots, cuckoos, and black bees, they were singing morning songs with more enthusiasm than usual. And it's described that in gratitude for the service bestowed upon him, he began rolling in the dust of Seva Kunj, crying tears of joy and happiness. The dust of Vrindavan. Now it's really interesting. In my research, I came across in Vrindavan Mahimamrita by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, he describes how the ground or the dust of Vrindavan is actually made of different substances. We think of dust as dust, but Braj is extraordinary. So the dust of Vrindavan is made of different substances. This is really interesting. He writes, in some places the ground of Braj is made of camphor dust. Wow. In some places the dust is made of saffron. In some places in Vrindavan it's made up of ground up musk. And in some places it's made up of aromatic substances used in religious ceremonies. Wow. So as Dukhi Krishnadas started cleaning and sweeping the kunj, suddenly he saw a glittering object under a pomegranate tree, which was lighting up the grove with its radiance. And coming closer, he saw to his surprise a divine golden anklet studded with sapphires, emanating an otherworldly fragrance. The ankle bells were emanating an otherworldly fragrance. It was sticking out of the ground. So famously, it's described, using an iron spade, he gently unearthed what turned out to be an anklet. Now it's mentioned that as soon as this iron spade touched that anklet, the spade turned into solid gold. The spade turned into solid gold. Then as Dukhi Krishnadas held the ornament in his hand, this is really nice, currents of divine ecstasy surged throughout his body and mind. Currents of divine ecstasy surged throughout his body and mind. And suddenly he heard an akashvani. We've described this before. Akashvani means like a voice from the sky. So this voice was saying, keep this anklet very carefully. Keep this anklet very carefully. So understanding, of course, that the ankle bells or the anklet were not ordinary, and that it, perhaps even more important, it belonged to some exalted personality, he tied it carefully in a corner of his cloth. Now, around the same time, Srimati Radharani realized she had lost one of her, it's described, favorite ankle bells, and she asked Lalita Sakhi to go back to Seva Kunja and retrieve it. Now generally such a service would go to one of her maidservants, but Radharani had her reasons for sending Lalita there, which we'll reveal later. So Lalita Sakhi, disguised as an ordinary village girl, went back to Seva Kunj. And there she saw Dukhi Krishna Das, and she approached him and introduced herself as Radha Dasi, and said that she was a resident of the village of Yavat. She said that the previous evening her sister had come to Seva Kunj to pick flowers and became frightened upon hearing the roar of a tiger. So she quickly ran away, while not noticing that golden ankle bells, the golden ankle bells on her left foot had fallen off somewhere in the grove. So she, in this disguised form, she asked Dukhi Krishna Das if he had found it. And he replied, yes, I have. But it's described his spiritual intuition told him that this so-called village girl was anything but ordinary. And he concluded that she was hiding her true identity. And therefore, he refused to give her the anklet. He said, something's off here or something's on here. He said, I think I have found what you're looking for, but how could you and your sister, obviously simple villagers, afford such a costly item? So Lalita Sakhi replied, Sir, we may be villagers, but we are not poor. Now please give me the anklet. But Dukhi Krishnadas persisted. He said, Dear girl, I want to see for myself if your sister is as wealthy as you insist she is. Please take me to her. If what you say is true, I will happily hand over this anklet. Now, Lalita Sakhi was getting impatient with Dukhi Krishnadas, but she could recognize his spiritual depth. So she restrained herself and took him to nearby Lalita Kund, her Kund, and told him to bathe there. She took him there. She said, now you bathe here. Like, what? Dukhi Krishna, he was confused. He thought, if this girl's sister is a simple village girl, why do I have to bathe before meeting her? So he paused and he said, young lady, can you please tell me why I have to bathe? Now at this point, Lalita was getting frustrated that things were going more slowly than she would have liked because Radharani was waiting. So at that point she took great mercy on Dukhi Krishnadas. And suddenly she revealed her original form to him as Lalita Sakhi. And it's described that upon beholding what's the quote? The unrivaled beauty of Radha's foremost friend. The unrivaled beauty of Radha's foremost friend, Dukhi Krishnadas fainted. Hare Krishna. So Lalita Sakhi then revived Dukhi Krishnadas with a touch of her lotus hand. And then she gave him what? Srimati Radharani's mantra, which consists of 15 syllables and is full of 6 divine opulences. Let's repeat that. Srimati Radharani's mantra, which consists of 15 syllables and is full of 6 divine opulences. Then she again requested him to bathe in the lake, which he gladly did this time. And entering Lalita Kund, fully dressed, he completely submerged himself. And upon resurfacing, he was stunned to find out that he had taken on the form of a most beautiful Braja Gopi, complete with dress and ornaments. And then, by the unfathomable potency of Yoga Maya, both Dukhi Krishnadas as a Gopi and Lalita Sakhi entered the unmanifest eternal feature of Vrindavan. Entered the unmanifest eternal feature of Vrindavan, Apakat Lila, where Lalita escorted this new Gopi to a kunj, to a grove, where Srimati Radharani was sitting on a throne surrounded by her friends. Now when Vishaka Sakhi saw how Dukhi Krishnadas had assumed the form of a manjari and appeared, how's it described, as resplendent as gold, she addressed her, or him, O Kanaka Manjari, you have come. O Kanaka Manjari, you have come. But the ecstasy of seeing his worshipable deity, Srimati Radharani, was too much for Dukhi Krishnadas. And to the amusement and curiosity of the other gopis, he fainted again. This time at the foot of Sri Radha's throne. And when he came to, Lalita Sakhi said to him, or her, here is my sister. You wanted to know whether she could be the rightful owner of this anklet or not, so what do you think? Now what do you think? So it's written then, when in his Gopi form, Dukhi Krishnadas gazed at Sri Radha, the gopis, and the kunja, his senses and mind became, quote, overwhelmed by the inconceivable grandeur of the sweet rural atmosphere surrounding him. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. He became overwhelmed by the inconceivable grandeur and the sweet rural atmosphere surrounding him. And unable to speak, he or she simply reached out to give Sri Radha the magical anklet. And as he did so, Sri Radha pulled him towards her with her right hand, and she gratefully accepted the ornament with her left. Then she said, I am very pleased with your devotion and with the service you render by sweeping the kunj. I want to bless you through the anklet that you have brought to me. So then she pressed her anklet into Dukhi Krishna's forehead as Kanaka Manjari, leaving a mark that had the shape of Sri Radha's lotus foot. Wow. The Shastra says that, and I quote, Srimati Radharani mixed sandalwood, camphor, honey, and along with saffron, rubbed the mixture on a moonstone, and then using part of the anklet, affectionately made a resplendent dot in the middle of the new tilak on his forehead of that doe-eyed Manjari. Wow. And once that was done, Lalita Sakhi named this now new, unique tilak with the resplendent dot in the middle, Shyam Mohana. They named the tilak, this new tilak, Shyam Mohana. Then Srimati Radharani said, from today, your name will be Syamananda, meaning literally one who gives bliss to Radharani. She continued, continue in your service, and one day you will attain me forever. Wow. Continue in your service, and one day you will attain me forever. As she said that, Syamananda now, his new name appeared inscripted on his chest. It just appeared. Then Radharani requested Syamananda to return to the material world and share his good fortune with others. However, the prospect of impending separation from Srimati Radharani caused Syamananda to start crying uncontrollably. With tears in his eyes, he begged Sri Radha not to send him back to the material world and deprive him of service to her lotus feet. So it's written that Srimati Radharani's heart melted with pity, and to relieve Syamananda's, his new name, Syamananda's distress, she manifested a beautiful deity of Lord Shyamasundar directly from her heart and asked Lalita Sakhi to give it to Syamananda. Then she said to Syamananda, Dear Syamananda, as long as you live in the material world, you should keep yourself engaged in the loving service and worship of this deity. In this way you will not suffer due to separation from me. After that, you will return back to my eternal service in this eternal abode. Wow. Now, that small deity of Shyamasundar can be seen even today in the Shyamasundar temple, one of the main 7 temples in Vrindavan. He's just by the side of the large Radha Krishna deities who were worshipped by Baladev Bijabhushana. So you can go there and see that small deity. What a privilege, what an honor, what a blessing. So then, newly named Syamananda bowed down to Srimati Radharani, and when he looked up, everything had changed. Radha, Lalita, and the eternal realm of Vrindavan had all vanished, all disappeared. And once again, he was in the garden, in the kunja, where he'd found the anklet, back in the clothes and the body of a brahmachari. But by the touch of the Manju Ghosha anklet, his iron spade, he saw, had become golden. And looking at himself in the reflection of a puddle of water, he saw that he had attained a bright golden complexion. And on his forehead was the Shyam Mohan Tilak, in the form of Sri Radha's foot, with a resplendent dot in the middle. And he saw reflected in the puddle on his chest was written Syamananda. Krishna. So then, with the divine deity of Shyamasundar in his arms, while shedding tears, and with his heart overwhelmed with love, he started running to Jiva Goswami's Bhajan Kutir to tell him everything that had happened. That was a perfect ending to this pastime. Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, her golden anklet ki, Syamananda Das ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you, Prabhu. We have more classes on Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani's lotus feet as a stimulus to awaken our love for the divine couple, Radha and Krishna, and we will continue next Friday. Shishi Gaur Nitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Shyamu Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yajna ki, Nitai Gaur Pimanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Shyam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.